Here I have an Apex 32-inch LCD TV, model number LD3288T. This one here has a problem with the antenna connection. The part where you screw your antenna wire onto, your cable antenna onto, is broke loose from the tuner box that's in the TV. It just spins and spins, so it's not connected to anything, so it's not going to get any stations or anything through that connection. We're going to take a look at it, see if there's a possibility of fixing it somehow. If not, it might be order a new board or scrap the whole TV. But we'll dig into it and see what we can find out. So I put a piece of tape around this just so you can see what I'm talking about when I say it's loose and broke. You can see I can wiggle this thing all around like this, and I can also just keep spinning it around and around and around. So there's no way that the cable connector is going to tighten up against that easily. The way it feels, maybe the center conductor is still soldered into the circuit board in there, and the outside just broke loose from being crimped together with the tuner box itself. So we might be able to get away with soldering this part to the tuner box, but I'll open it up and take a look at it a little bit closer, and then we'll see what we can do. So here's the inside of the TV. This right here is the board that we're going to have to take out in order to fix our connector right down here. So there's a few screws here. Take all these cables off so we can have the board sitting right out, because I'm not able to work on it inside here the way it sits. So got a few screws along the front here too. So I'll get all that out. We'll set the board out here on the table, and then we'll take a look at that, look into that further, and see what we're going to be able to do with it. Alright. So here we have the board out. Wasn't too bad. Like I said, there was screws in the front here that was holding it in there, and then a few screws in the back. Here's our connector here. You can see this is supposed to be pressed inside this, but after turning on it and tightening the cable wire, you know, connecting it, disconnected it, these things tend to break if you're putting too much pressure on them, trying to tighten them too much or getting pliers on them to tighten them. That's why it only should be hand tight. I'm guessing the reason they don't solder these on this piece to this piece is because in the center here, that's plastic, and that'll melt when you heat this whole thing up with solder. I've done it before, but I'll try it with this one. We'll see if it'll work. If it melts this inside too bad, then I'm going to have to see if I could either get another one of these or ask the owner of this TV what they want to do with it. This seems like a minor part here to throw the whole TV away. So my guess is they're going to want me to try to do what I can do to try to get it fixed, and I'll do that. We have to desolder the connections here. There's 3 of them, and then the center one is that contact inside there, and then we can have just this piece laying on the bench and work with it, so we don't damage the circuit board around it. This here's the tuner there, it looks like. So that's the next thing I'll do, is I'll take this out, and then so we can have this as a separate piece, and then we'll go from there. So here I have the pieces out of the board. I already cleaned up the board. Wasn't too bad getting it out of there. Just your normal soldering. Got the two pieces for the cable connector right here. You can see the only thing that was soldered in the board was this end right here. That's why it was wiggling all around. And this end, you can see, is separate from the outside, so that's why that just spun like that. And it's really hard to put a cable wire on there when it does that. So you can see this piece here, it's got flats on the sides that catch on the flats on these sides here, and then it's all pressed in there to where it won't spin. We can see that's a little deformed, so it popped out, and that's why we have the problem that we have. So this has to go back in here and then get put back in its spot, lined up with the straight spots, and then we'll try to run some solder around the outside, around this part here, to try to get it to stay in there. And we got to do that without heating up that white part right in there, because then that center contact here, if we heat it up too much, this starts to move and it can short out to the outside edge, and then it's worthless. So we'll try that, and if that doesn't work, then we'll have to buy a new one. But I think we'll get this to work again. It shouldn't be that difficult. Alright, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you what I come up with afterwards. So I was able to get that piece together the way it originally was. You definitely need to have patience if you want to try to get this together in the way that they built it from the factory. What happens is, when this piece goes through here, it's flared out. I don't know when during the process they do all this, but it's flared out at the end, so it actually flares out on the inside here, along with having those straight pieces on the edge. And you can see that I did get it pretty close to back to where it was. And I'm going to still go ahead and I'm going to try to put some solder on here to hold these two together, because right now it's not strong enough to withstand the tightening and loosening of the cable wire. So I do still have to solder this, but at least I have it back to what it should originally look like. And I did a crude little drawing here to kind of show you what it looks like on the inside. So this piece right here is this, and you can see on the inside here are these little pieces that go out like this, and that's what actually holds it on the inside. And there's straight edges right here and right here. As you can see, I drew it over here looking at it like this. You can see there's two straight edges, and then it's rounded, and those rounded parts along with the straight edges are flared out like this. And when that's all crimped together, that's what holds it inside our casing here, which is this part here. We have our straight edges and we have our round. This is one stamped cut, it looks like. And then when this piece goes through this hole, I think they might flare this out afterwards. That's the only way I can see them getting that in there. And then this is our little contact wire in the center of the plastic that's in here. So I was able to get this all together like that. So hopefully you kind of understand what you're going to be looking at when you tackle something like this. That's where you have to have patience, because getting these little flared out part all the way around back in this hole right here is a job. what I ended up doing is I ended up just grabbing one side from about here to here and then bending it out so I could get this piece in there. And then once I got it in there, I'd set it on the top like this, and then I hit it like this to try to get the other side back down in there. So my metal part here was actually sitting down here where it's supposed to be. So my flare is over the metal box like it was from the factory. And you can see I did a pretty good job. I didn't damage anything too much, and I was able to get it in there pretty secure. But I'm not gonna do any tugging on it or anything. But I'm gonna go ahead and solder this now and see if I can do it without melting that. I'm hoping I can. If not, like I said, I just have to buy a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and try that now. I'll try it right here on the camera. If I can't, then I'll actually do it off the camera. I have my soldering iron cranked way up so it gets nice and hot. I would like to heat the box up more than this box up more than I would anything else. I don't want to touch it because I'm going to end up burning my fingers with it. Just kind of blowing on it to get it cooled down. It looks like it took. Using flux on there would be make it a little bit better. I have some, but I didn't set it up here on the table before I started doing this. So, but I cleaned it off and everything. Everything's clean. But again, if you have flux, I would use flux. You can see the solder is melted onto both surfaces. Hopefully you can see that without it being zoomed in very close. But I don't want to touch that right now, it's just a little hot. Plastic still looks good so far. I'm going to try to do it one more time on the top here. I guess I'll try it on the bottom too, just so it's all the way around. You want to try to heat up the box as much as you can first. Don't worry about heating this up too much. It'll gradually get warm enough for the solder to stick to it. It's almost like sweating a water pipe if you've ever done that. It's pretty much what you're doing. I'm going to have to let it cool down. It looks like I might be getting that plastic a little warm. You can see my hole moved a little bit, so I'm getting that plastic a little bit warm. As long as it ain't totally deformed where you can't get your cable wire in there, you should be able to get it on there. And you don't want it to short out on the inside. You want to make sure your little wire here on the inside is where it's supposed to be when it gets ready to solder into the board. So I think I'm going to let that sit for a little bit, let it cool down, and I might end up soldering it up on the top there, or I might just call that good enough, and then we'll see about putting it back in there in the circuit board. So we'll let that sit and cool for a minute. Alright, so I decided that 3 solder points was good enough, and it's pretty steady. I didn't do the top one there, but you can definitely see that the other ones are really good. They're gonna hold it. This one right here actually, like I said, went around the whole edge there like you were sweating a water pipe if you were a plumber. So that's definitely gonna be a good hold right there. And I straightened out my little hole here a little bit. I did melt the plastic a little bit, but I'm still gonna be able to get my center wire into the circuit board, and I'm actually going to be able to get a cable on because I tested it, and I'm able to screw a cable on it right now. So my plastic piece is not deformed to where I can't get my cable wire connected to it. So that's a good thing there. Now if you want to test this before you put it in the circuit board to make sure that you didn't melt the plastic on the inside too much, just use your meter, set it on continuity so you get a beep, and apply it to the outside and to your center contact and see if there's a short. If there's a short, then most likely it's not going to be any good, because your cable data is going to be shorting out onto the ground. This one is good. There's no continuity between the outside shell and my center contact piece, so I'm good, and I'm ready to stick this back in the board and give the TV a try. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save you from the agony of watching me put this in the board and put the board back in the TV and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put this in, I'm going to put the TV all back together, and the next thing you should see is the TV working with some channels on it. Alright, so we'll go from there. Alright, well, you can see that the cable connection works good now. We can see video on there. I have the image blurred out because apparently you're not supposed to show anything like this on YouTube, so that's the reason for that. So if you ever run across a problem where your cable connection breaks, your cable connector back there breaks, now you have an idea on how you can fix it and get your TV back up and running. Alright, that'll do it for this one. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.